Well. Hey guys, happy Friday. It's First Friday. Roz McCarthy here. We are excited about MProcure, which is our supplier diversity program. And we've been working on this program for over a year now. And I've been working towards making sure that opportunities in the supply chain are offered and also are recognized. And so, literally, today, we have every first Friday of the month. So, like clockwork, we get on live. We talk about the opportunity for supplier diversity. We talk to vendors. We talk to buyers. And we talk to social equity applicants and participants in the cannabis industry who may be looking at this as another opportunity from a business perspective to be able to get connected and grow a business and see the opportunity and the riches that are involved in cannabis. We are in a multi-billion-dollar industry right now. And so I think we have to do things a little bit differently outside of looking at operators. But I'm so excited to have our guest for us today. As you can see, Mr. Adolph Ward II. He's the executive director of the Oakland Equity Collective. He's the owner of Zip Delivery, and he's the managing director of Emerald Magazine. So without further ado, let's bring Adolph to the stage. Adolph, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm okay. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to see you. Hey, how long have we been doing this dance about getting together, right?
Look, it doesn't matter how long it lasted, as long as it actually comes to
As
fruition.
long as,
Right?
as long as you go, right? We've been doing this dance about getting together because it's critical. I want people to get to know you and learn about you, and then we're going to go into the topic. So this floor is yours. Share with everyone who you are, what you do, where you live, and how long you've been in this industry and where your place is in the industry.
Yes, ma'am. And first and foremost, let me thank you for the platform to begin with.
Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adolph. I am a cannabis business operator in the city of Oakland and cannabis advocate. I've been in the cannabis space since the mid 90s. I in the legal space since 2016, 17. We were actually one of the first we were one of the first temporary licenses issued in the state of California, and probably I think the first social equity delivery license issued as well. So we've been navigating these waters for some time. But the exciting thing that we have going on now is that we have formed the Oakland Equity Collective, and what that actually is that our group won a grant from the city of Oakland in 2021, which was really birthed from the very fact that general applicants or non-social equity applicants in Oakland could kind of leapfrog the line if they incubated or gave free space to a social equity applicant for 3 years. That began in 2017. Come 2020, some applicants saw themselves displaced and without a home. And so the city came up with this grant to say, wouldn't it be nice if we purchased a building that would service or serve social equity applicants? Yeah. My group was lucky enough to have one. And our proposal was groundbreaking because instead of us actually moving our businesses here and obtaining licenses, we actually proposed that we would actually try to help the community. And so we have an S-type kitchen in which 6 social equity applicants will move in and out of every year and a half. And then we have a social equity white labeling facility where we actually do the work for those that want to dip their toe in the industry or just expand their existing product offerings or just have an in-house brand. So we're excited now. We're kind of changing the paradigm of what this could look like.
Nice. I remember when that first came out in 2017, and we were there fighting for some of those social equity applicants. And it was always my concern that after 3 years, you had some people that were taking advantage of an opportunity that were incubating them just to get their own license and what would happen. And so it's just, it's unfortunate that we could see the writing on the wall that people would just ditch their social equity applicant and literally just, you got to try to figure it out. So, I mean, it's so unfortunate. So when you look at this from an implementation and execution, how long do you think it's going to take you guys to get up and running with the collective there in Oakland?
We will actually be running within the next 30 days. So
this
has been a very lengthy process. We actually began it in early 2021. And so obviously it was cumbersome to actually close on the grant and then close on the building and then begin the licensing process and the equipment and the learning curve. But we are actually licensed, and we are that's why I was a little tardy. We're actually at the building now, kind of doing some last minute kind of groundwork, and we actually expect to have product rolling out of here within the next 2 weeks.
It's awesome. That is so excellent. Man, I got to come visit you and see what you guys are putting down and feature the collective, on more conversations, because a lot of people don't know what you're doing. Can you share how much that grant was that you guys have, and is it ongoing?
It is. So our grant was for 2.1 million. And it's actually purchased the building. So the building actually cost us roughly about 1.9. So we had a little bit of change to kind of get up and operational. They have the city of Oakland has already greenlit phase 2. So they've allocated 2.5 million to another grant that they're giving out this summer. And then hopefully if things continue to work the right way, they'll continue to try to fund these programs and continue to buy properties for social equity. So,
Nice.
Fingers crossed. And, we really think that this is a model that can be duplicated and created, in other jurisdictions, other states, to really actually give tangible help to social equity applicants, which most of us, or if you pool most applicants, they would say the number one, barrier is real estate. And so,
Yeah.
we love the idea behind it. And hopefully we'll be able to prove that the concept really works.
So in your mind, when you think about this, so you guys are owning the building. So the good thing is that you don't lease it, and you have an asset that can grow in value, right?
Exactly.
And then with the businesses that are now going to be there, will they have an opportunity to then transition and phase out? They're not going to be displaced as they continue to grow and you bring new businesses in. Is that how you got it figured out?
Potentially. I mean, the harsh reality is that they do run the risk of actually phasing themselves out, right? But we look at it as ultimately that there's 3 options, right? Option 1, which is the one we're all hoping, is that they phase out onto their own, right? They don't phase out of the game or out of the industry. And we're really working to provide them wraparound services to give them everything that they need to actually make that happen. Option 2 is that either they scale to the point that the time frame that they have in the S-type kitchen isn't enough, or they decide that they don't want to deal with the day-to-day. They just want to focus on building the brand. They have the option to hire us just to do the white labeling for them. Right. And then the third option is that the unfortunate reality is if I knew then what I know now, I may have come to the conclusion that this wasn't for me, right? Before I invested so much time and energy and everything else, right? And as we all, you, I, and a lot of other advocates tell people often, instead of looking at plant touching, look at ancillary, right? So I wish I understood that more 6 years ago.
And you know what? And get so passionate about it as well, because it's such a great option. And that's a great segue, because I think the critical part about us creating MProcure, which is our supplier diversity program, was one, holding the industry accountable to say, listen, there's more ways that people, especially social equity, can touch and be connected to this industry. So that's number 1. Number 2, being able to get the support of the industry, because if we don't get the industry and the cannabis companies connected and wanting to see this push through, it won't happen. And so I think right now we're at a stage where the work you're doing is critical. But how's your conversation? What have been the conversations with big cannabis brands about, working and doing business with ancillary businesses? Have you had those conversations, and what has it looked like?
The companies that we've spoken with thus far have been very receptive. Time will tell what actually happens. But they've been very receptive because, I think it's a little different when you are sometimes coming and your asks are too large or they're too onerous, or you're just asking in general. But I think if you can approach some of these companies with a viable idea of how it's beneficial to them and to you and your organization, and how it's also the right thing to do, then that changes the conversation. And so that's the way we've attempted to approach it. And then we do have a couple of companies that I strongly anticipate we really will be working with. A couple that I have in the maybe column. Couple I think, they weren't really receptive. But we kind of knew that this model would be something that some companies would really gravitate toward because it just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Our frame of thinking is that considering that we're a white labeling facility and we're really just hired hands to do the work for you, the amount of potential clients that may funnel through our facility is endless.
Yeah.
And, if you're an ancillary company, if you provide materials or supplies, if you're somewhere else in the supply chain, it could really be beneficial for you to become one of our partners. And so, I think with that approach, we really have had I think we'll see success there.
Yeah. So can you talk about, explain to people that might be just listening in, understanding what is that white labeling from a business model? What does that look like, and what does that mean for a small business, a social equity business? What does that look like for them? And what do you do, and then what do they do?
That's a great question. And so the easiest analogy that I love to give people is that a lot of us shop at Costco, right? And a lot of us love Costco and hate it at the same time because you can't get out there without spending $500-600. However, you'll notice that they have a brand that's sold all throughout Costco called Kirkland. Kirkland is Costco's in-house brand, but to anyone's surprise, Costco doesn't actually manufacture any of that. So white labeling has been happening for quite some time in cannabis and in every other industry that you name. And it's basically one company making a product on behalf of another. And the term white labeling comes from to imply that the label is blank to fill in whatever the brand will ultimately be. And so what we are looking at doing here is let's say you're a social equity delivery operator in the city of Oakland, and you realize you've been selling a large amount of pre-rolls. But the margins that you're receiving on pre-rolls aren't that great because you're having to buy them from a third-party distributor and manufacturer. You could literally hire us to manufacture a pre-roll under your in-house brand. And ultimately, it's simple. The prices are very affordable. You maintain 100% equity of your brand and control as long as you're a license holder. Right. And you could dictate your own destiny. Now, where we really are excited about our model is that it also works for out-of-state operators or non-license holders through licensing agreement and adding them as financial interest holders to our license. And so what we really are attempting to do is one of the terms I've used, and maybe it's a bad term, but we're attempting to feed the streets, if that makes sense. A lot of illicit or unlicensed operators have started to brand themselves. They have bags, they have stickers, they have swag, they have, some of them have large Instagram followings and what have you. Our model allows that individual to take the work he's done on that side of the coin and to bring it over into the light. And so ultimately through, again, the right documentation and so forth and so on, we can now introduce a product for this individual into the licensed legal market. And so it gives everyone additional options, right? And it also gives you an opportunity to really dip your toe into the industry without diving in feet first, not knowing what lies below. And absolutely. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying absolutely. Keep going.
And so we have the capacity to make solventless extracts, such as kief, bubble hash, and rosin. We can package flour, make any form of pre-roll, topicals, tinctures, and edibles. Now, there will be some SKUs that we will stay away from, like SKUs that are, high in acidity or, peanuts or nut things of that nature that have major liabilities or overly complicated. But in general, we'll have the capacity to make anything as long as it's not a volatile process.
Man, that's fantastic. Are you seeing when people come to you, because you're basically taking them through everything from soups to nuts in regards to creating their packaging and going out the door? How many, again, this is a supplier chain conversation, but from your packaging company to your graphic company to your labeling company, how many of those companies are you seeing that are coming from communities of color or social equity businesses? Are you seeing that right now? And if not, can we talk about the opportunity that's there for folks to understand that you need those services in order to deliver on your white labeling requirement to get that product out the door?
Exactly. Yeah, the opportunities are and there's still not enough, but it is increasing. We are seeing more people of color, more minorities who provide these ancillary services, but they're very important. while this is not a gold rush, and I hate when people call it the green rush, right? Because they're nowhere near the same. More folks got, we all still know the name Levi Strauss, right? And many more folks made a fortune selling picks and shovels. And so when you look at the non-plant touching services, and everything that just touches the border of it, the opportunity is massive. I mean, prime example, each and every last one of us has to have insurance policies and surety bonds.
Right.
Though that's residual income.
So stop right there. So again, what we're trying to explain here, and hey, Dima is out in the Virgin Islands, and so we're excited about working with folks out in the Caribbean as well. The thing we're trying to impress upon folks is that surety bonds, insurance, packaging, all these different type of things. There's a supply chain. And so if you can imagine Adolph and his group, and they're small and just getting going, talk about honestly, Adolph, the number of big cannabis businesses that are in the Bay Area or in Northern California. Like, we can name them between Grizzly, you got Harborside, like talk about that. And the amount of money that they are creating in revenue, and they have to support a business, and how we should be trying to figure out how do we get into that supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Ross hit it right on the head. You have so many of these really large, legacy operators, especially right here in the Bay Area, who, collectively spend tens of millions of dollars annually on these type of on products and services. To actually think about the fact of, and hold on, I want to compound this with the fact there's been a person who's been operating for quite some time in this industry. A lot of us are kind of lazy, and I don't really mean lazy, but I mean, we're wearing so many hats and we have so many different things to do. It's really hard to, in many cases, to dive too far down the rabbit hole. And so, prime example, you'd be surprised how many companies order supplies from a company like Uline. That's extremely convenient because they carry a gambit of things. However, they're not the cheapest. And so, just think about what the cannabis industry spends on packaging cartons, not the packaging, but the master cartons or cases that the product go into. It's millions of dollars on cardboard spent annually. Jars, labels. I love to joke that the only people really making money in cannabis in California today are the printing companies. If you have the capacity to print labels and flexible Mylar bags and stickers, and you can write your own ticket. And so more of us really need to look. And again, if I could go backwards, I myself would look further down, at that path. And so if you can provide any type of service to this industry, regardless of where you are in this country, you're more than likely more valuable than those actually touching the plant. And you name it, it exists, from specialty contractors to security experts to, people. Someone's going to develop the greatest, newest nutrient in the world that's all natural, and they could be in this, in this live stream now listening. So, look at what's available and what skill set you possess, but don't look past, not being the one that's growing, touching, selling the cannabis, because more than likely you'll make more money by not doing that. And you're not, you don't face many of the penalties that we face, like the 280E and any federal implications.
Yeah.
Well, you may not. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say you won't. You may not.
Yeah. When you created the cooperative and you saw the vision for this or what have you, you do have a business model for creating revenue. So as a wholesaler, can you talk about how that split is and how normally, how does that look for you as well as a social equity operator, and how you guys have to be simpatico on the same, on the same page? And then also maybe from a distribution perspective, what's your distribution plan for those different brands that you're wanting to bring to the marketplace?
So we kind of have it open-ended, and we didn't want to lock anyone in or close anyone in. So in a perfect world, they are none of our clients are actually obligated to use our distribution services.
Okay.
They have the option to, but they're not obligated to. And so our collective is actually made up of 8 social equity operators out of Oakland. I'm just the executive director. And so one of our partners, Mahalit Hagos, she has a brand called Deals, doing it ourselves. She actually is running point and running operations of the distro. And so ultimately, we're utilizing the relationships we have and the shelf space that we have kind of in our pocket at the moment, and the fact that some of these retailers have social equity mandates that they have to abide by. And so that's how we can actually kind of help get the product out to the market for you. So we have both options, in-house and out of our facility. For the split, we also tried to simplify that, and we wanted it to be overly fair. So we have no split. In most cases, it's just a set price for our labor or our touch points.
Yeah.
And then whoever the brand owner is obviously responsible for their raw materials, their packaging, and so forth. And so when I say we're hired hands, we are literally just hired hands. We
Wow.
don't want to control your brand. We don't want to profit from your brand. We don't want to get our hooks into you and make you obligated to stay with us. Our idea of success is actually that it works well enough that you scale away from us in a quick time frame. So in a perfect world, for some operators, it will be as simple as us making the product, manifesting it out of the facility, and help in any way, shape, or form we can. But for those self-sufficient operators, we'll see you on the next run. So
Yeah.
we really tried to not tie any strings to the operators, because we hear of all these predatory deals, and we just didn't want it to not be fair for them.
But you have created a revenue source for yourself. So you're co-packing, the professional services that you provide, all that stuff. There is a opportunity for you to also, from a business perspective, be able to thrive, right? Because it shouldn't. Because
Exactly.
if the plug, you the plug, brother. If the plug can't thrive, then we can't thrive. So we need you to thrive and to be there and to be consistent, and then to push the baby outside, or push the bird out of the nest, right?
Exactly. And so really the ultimate value for us is plugging into the same ecosystem, right? Having access to this ecosystem and having the opportunity to really utilize city funds to do what I would have did on my own dollar, right? And so, it's benefiting me while also using myself as a proof of concept to give back to the community. So it's in essence a win-win.
So how do we duplicate this? I know it's just getting started. I know, but the concept, because all it is being able to have strong concept and then execute. Strong concept, bring in the people, execute, and then also I think it's do you have a conversation with your wholesale, your brands, about the expectation of revenue? Because we sometimes think, okay, now I'm about to make $1 million, and I think there has to be a level set of what your potential revenue may look like from a quarter to quarter, year to year. Do you have that type of conversation with those brands as well?
We do, and we invite them to be extremely realistic, because what's happening is that we don't want to feed anyone the wrong expectations. We don't want them to think. I don't want you to mortgage Big Mama's house thinking that this is your meal ticket. And so, we're very realistic with our supply or partners, and we really invite them to expect the worst and hope for the best. And so ultimately, with this being such a realistic model, for the barriers to entry being so low, anyone attempting to utilize this facility or this wonderful experiment that we're attempting, they have to, or to start any kind of business, you have to realize that the business may not work.
Yeah, yeah, and be realistic about it. It's a hard cold fact that you do all this work and still, not be able to see the riches that you're hoping to see. Do you have some thoughts in regards to celebrity brands that are out there right now, and be it athletes, entertainers, and the longevity of that business model that we're seeing that so many people are picking up on, where it could be a cannabis company thinking they're going to get Snoop on or get Wiz on, and that's going to be a long-term cash cow. I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Historically they haven't really worked, right? And they're great. It's a great look. It's a great feel. But historically it hasn't worked. And I think that it's also very important to realize that having a celebrity endorsement doesn't mitigate the hard work that still has to be done, right?
Yeah.
You still actually have to do the work. You still have to get the product out there. And it's like the old saying, trash in, trash out. Doesn't matter whose face you put on it. If it's, a bad brand and it's not being marketed the right way, nothing's really gonna, it's not gonna matter. And so ultimately, I think that, historically we haven't seen it work, but we're still at the beginning. I mean, I think we also really forget the fact that as a legal industry, non 215, we're still fresh, we're still new, we're still babies. And so, we're still really waiting to see how the majority of this will pan out, especially in California, because they messed up so much of it. So make no mistake that while we haven't seen a real good proof of concept, it's coming, and we can all brace for it. And I would implore social equity applicants or small business owners or minority-owned businesses to actually lean into that. Like we all know celebrities to some extent. We all have local rappers or R&B singers or producers or what have you in our areas. So lean into that because it is an avenue that can take you kind of far.
Listen, I got Black Buddha, right? And so this was I kind of lucked into this, but I'm friends with Malik Yoba, and I just pitched him on, so he's not the face of it, and this brand is for women by women, but he's someone that really believes in how we are focused and how we are our customer base and what the message we're trying to relay. And he got on board. I mean, and so in one sense, I think there's an opportunity that it has to be more than just that personality, but in another sense, I think having that person on board can't hurt, right?
No, it can't. And to further that, even here at OEC, we actually have started working with our first celebrity partner. We have my personal business, but I'm utilizing the facility to actually implement it. I have a relationship with Drink Champs, the podcast.
Who does that?
DJ EFN and Noriega.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we rolled out in partnership with SF Roots. We rolled out a pre-rolled hemp, 2-gram hemp blunt that's on the market now. It's been on the show. It's been viral for the last 2-3 months and multiple different occasions. And so that's been exciting. So we have dipped our toe into that realm. And then one of our other partners here at OEC has recently done a partnership, or a brand in partnership with the Oakland Black Panthers. And then we have a couple of other partnerships coming down the pike. So we are definitely looking to go at it a little differently and utilize some of these other platforms and celebrities to kind of, move the ball a little further downfield.
So when we think about, you are in Northern California, you're in Oakland. So all those folks that are on with us today, we are talking to Adolph Ward. Adolph is based in Oakland, California. It really is the birthplace of social equity, in my opinion. I know when I started in 2017, my first dipping my toe into social equity was going out to Oakland, talking to the people, talking to Greg Minor, who was at the time, I don't know if Greg is still there, but he was with the Cannabis Commission. So he's there. So what's up, Greg? So talking to those folks and being able to learn and figure out how to navigate. What do you see right now, Adolph, for California? Like, it seems like there's been a restart. They're having to go back and try to fix a lot of problems. And is there any advice that you can tell someone? We have like Dr. Adams, who's here from New York, on with us today, and other folks that are throughout the country. What can they learn from the state, and not only just social equity, but in general, that we can maybe take and walk away with?
Well, first thing first, I actually want to commend New York, right? Because none of us knows how this will pan out, but on paper, New York looks really good. I'm envious. So the biggest takeaway I'm going to tell anyone in any other state, especially that's actually crafting policy or language for policy in regards to social equity, is learn what we got wrong. While and Roz is right. Normally I get in trouble for repping my area and saying that we definitely are the birthplace of social equity. We were the first social equity program in the world, but we got a lot wrong. And our program was very specific to our issues here, right? Even the incubation really took place because Oakland is a big city with a little city. Oakland is a little city with a big city complex. We think we're this big giant, and we're just not. So the problem really was real estate. We really didn't have enough real estate for out-of-towners and us. And so that's kind of where that was one of the birthplaces of the program and why some of the rules existed. Your program is going to look different because you're going to have different issues wherever you are. So that's first and foremost. We have to realize that there is no cookie cutter approach. Secondly, we did a disjustice to some of the social equity applicants by not having it really unpacked, by not having clear-cut expectations, the rules being somewhat ambiguous, and so it helped no one. But the social equity program in California has ultimately struggled because the entire cannabis industry has struggled. And so the first thing you can be mindful of in other states, don't overregulate and overtax and overstress the issue. It will become a trickle down effect. That's not a good one. Yeah. And so, I think that we have to be very, very mindful of the overall industry and how the regulations regulate it and the responsibilities and the levels of complication that we put onto it. All of that's compounded in most instances by social equity applicants.
Yeah. So we had a question is what, let me see, I'll put it up on screen. So Dr. Adams is asking, what's your license number limited at the outset? Like, so what's the, yes. Is there like a license caps for the area and for the state of California? How's that figured out?
The state of California generally left it up to local jurisdictional control. And so you have a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything happening. In most cases, yes, there is a cap on license numbers. In most cases, there are a few jurisdictions that have allowed an unlimited amount of specific licenses to be issued. Normally, that doesn't exist for brick and mortar storefront retail. But Oakland, for example, has no cap on every other license type outside of retail. And so, throughout the state, it's kind of a hodgepodge of, some jurisdictions having very limited licensing. Most jurisdictions actually having, I think it's like 70% of California actually has licensing bans.
Right.
And then, a very few jurisdictions opening up the floodgate only for specific license types.
Isn't that amazing when you think about it, that you look at California, 70% of California has a ban, a city, municipality has a ban on selling cannabis in their city or what have you. And you still have the state of California, the number one worldwide, global, in regards to revenue, regardless of all the issues that are happening, regardless of the regulatory overtaxing, and it is a trickle down, because if they tax the cultivator is going to tax the distribution point is going to get taxed. It all goes down to the customer. And so instead of paying, for your product and walking out the door, you got like a $25 tax on top of, you've already paid $65. It makes no sense, right? And this is why we see that the state of California has the largest regulated market, but it also has the largest unregulated legacy market, that people are like, all right, if you want to do customers bad, we'll do them right, and we'll figure out how to make a commerce between ourselves. I think, we have some really, really, really smart people that come from social equity, small business owners. What we're trying to do with MProcure is figure out, how do we talk to other cannabis companies? Because I'm talking to you, Adolph, and you with it. You like, Roz, if you got someone that has a service, have them call me. But how do we have the same conversation with, with the Cookies of the world, with, Harborside of the world, with, High Times of the world? All these folks that have built major brands in California, that we think they should be doing business with our operators. I mean, with our business owners.
I think that really what we have to do is we have to bring them viable proofs of concepts, right? We can no longer expect that some of the larger companies will do the right thing simply because it's the right thing. Yeah. I mean, the unfortunate reality is that's just not business in most cases. So we actually have to be able to bring value to the table. But, I think that many of us get lost in translation, that we bring a tremendous amount of value if we actually realize it, right? We're as people of color, we're creative. We set trends. I can go
strong and just,
we can go on and on.
We go on and on, and the struggle. We could take $1 out of 15 cents and stretch that thing so wide, and this was where we talk about investors. How about the investor community that doesn't invest in us. And we already know, like, we will take your dollar that you've multiplied times 50, we'll take a tenth of that and be able to do the same thing or even more. And they don't even realize it. And it's so sad.
We don't, and in many cases, it's us getting in our own way. I mean, like, even in my own case, I actually have a couple of monthly progress reports with the city to let them know where we are and what's going on. Sure. And I use the term often, we moving the ball down the field, and one of the elders in the city, she's actually a older Black woman. She actually stopped me last month and said, "You're not moving the ball anywhere. You've already crossed the finish line." And we understand that it's the finish line to starting, right? Like, we're just starting. Yeah. But it's been a whole playoff series to even get to the starting line. So, she really kind of shook me and said, "Stop speaking in riddles as if you've done it. Like, you've got this building, you won this grant, you got the license, you're about to operate, you're about to get operational, you've actually done it." And it kind of sunk in my head to say, okay, yeah, she is right. And so ultimately, often we get in our own way, and we don't get in front of those investors and let them know really what we know or what the game plan is or how they should really invest in us. Because again, for a fraction of what someone else will want, I'll do more because I'm accustomed to it. We don't network.
We always got to be struggling. Why do we got to be struggling?
Literally, we don't network the way we should.
We're struggling, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that we don't do because historically, for one reason or the other, we just haven't. We don't go to these events as we should. That's why I was so elated that you guys had an event for people of color at a larger event that historically has not had a large minority.
Yeah. MJ Biz, yeah. And,
yes,
we're doing it again this year, and it's going to be even bigger, and we're going to celebrate us because we don't normally, for those who did not get a chance to attend the MJ Biz, we did a mixer, and it was specifically for our community, for social equity, for Black and brown business owners to be able to be in a room and just be able to talk to one another, introduce ourselves to one another. You'll be surprised when you go to these different events and conferences. We are one of very few in the room, and we're not embraced. Like, I know my first event at MJ Biz, I felt so uncomfortable and so like a fish out of water. And this was in 2018, and that's what really made me kind of push to say, okay, we're going to do a mixer that's about us, that's for us, and it's going to be of excellence. So you walk in, it's a beautiful venue, it's great food, it's entertainment. You got dab bar over here, rolling bar here. You got, I mean, you name it. It was pretty dope. So we're going to definitely duplicate that again this year.
And we have to get out there. I mean, and again, I was so happy to know that that's what you got, and I'm even happier to know that you're doing it again. But we have to put ourselves out there in a manner that we're not comfortable with. Most of us are just not comfortable with, but this is what, successfully running our businesses look like. And so we have to realize that the majority of the barriers put in front of us, outside of the financial and real estate and all those other things that we know exist, the majority of the barriers that are put in front of us are those that we place there ourselves. Once we get past that, the sky is the limit.
Listen, Rich made a great comment, and thank you, Rich, for commenting. And I see you too, Dima. I really appreciate you. He says typical investors want to see us make progress before investing. For our non-plant touching data business is the same. We self-invested $500,000 before they would even listen. You are so, like, when I say you're on it, because I have a brand that it's the same situation, white labeling the whole 9 yards. I've put 6 years of just hard sweat work, equity, Roz McCarthy, whatever. Do you know we had this one guy was like, well, do you have any POs? I'm like, I got the agreement with operators. We have a major MSO operators that we're partnered with, and we still can't get those investment dollars because they want to see proof of concept. And it goes back to your point about people want to see proof of concept and not willing to see our numbers, because numbers don't lie, and allow us to work it. It's just, thank you, Rich, for that comment, because it's so clear. I mean, I agree 100%.
And I mean, there was a point in time that wasn't true because this was new, right? It was supposed to be this cash cow, and everyone was looking forward to throwing money into it. Well, that shit that panned out not to be the truth. And so, I tell people all the time that if you probably don't have skin in the game, or if you don't have a very clear cut idea of what it's going to be, or you haven't cured cancer, 9 times out of 10 is going to be very hard to get an investment at the early stages. And if you do, you're negotiating from a place of almost desperation. So you don't have the upper hand. It's not really a negotiation. So a little bit of work, a little micro investments, maybe friends and family, what have you, whatever you got to do to prove the concept, it will get you so much further, and it will create more opportunities, because then you get to walk in and not say, I need you, but you can say, this is what I've done. Imagine what I can do with your help. I can do this. That's a much different conversation.
And then be prepared to figure it out alone. I'll tell you what's helping us to stay afloat is our friends and family round. We believe, like, if you have the numbers and if you could back yourself into the numbers and you keep it really tight, you're able to figure things out. And that friends and family round, because you would be surprised at people around you who want to get into this industry, who want to see someone that's a subject matter expert, and they will invest into your dream. And so that's what's kind of holding us afloat, so we can have revenue that's coming through the door. So we're able to say, okay, great, here's where we sold out, or here's what's going on here. But you're absolutely right, Adolph.
And then I think that we also, as a community, as a collective, we also have to look at alternative funding sources. And everyone's so caught up, and I think many of us don't have the answers to it. But we should have social equity funds. We should have social equity crowdfunding.
Real ones that are not predatory. Hey, let me ask you a question.
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question while I got you here. So what's your thoughts on the franchise? Did you see an article? There was a gentleman that was on LinkedIn, and he had an article about, he wrote it himself. He said he was inspired with the franchise model, and he wanted to see if this would be something that would support and maybe help support social equity. And so I would love to, get your feedback on franchising. And has that taken shape in California at all? Or have you heard about it? Or is it something that's still predatory in nature sometimes? Or are we seeing some good examples of success?
It can be all of the above. Interesting enough, I've kind of somewhat played with that model myself with my delivery. And then we actually at some point in time jumped to another region, probably too early. And so that was kind of detrimental. Growth too quick can be just as bad as no growth, if not worse.
Right.
But it's very, very viable. And it's not just viable for one market. It's viable across the country, because, prime example, you've had your brand for 6 years. You've been through the ins and outs. You know a lot of the nuances of what you're doing. A very freshly licensed social equity individual in Arizona doesn't have any of what you have. They don't have that last 6 years of experience. So them doing a franchise model or a licensing agreement with you only makes sense. What are they losing? They're gaining 6 years of knowledge. They now have an expert on their team. And your brand instantly also became an MSO overnight. And so there needs to be more cohesion, more working together, not just of the industry as a whole, but specifically minorities and women-owned and Black-owned and veteran-owned businesses. Because if nothing else, it's a small guys against these major conglomerates who are coming, and they're not as concerned about most of us as most people think they are. They don't care about us.
It is only if there's policy in place for them to get a license where they go, okay, well, I got to play ball or something, or in order for me to get into this marketplace that's so lucrative, I got to figure out how to play ball. But you are so entirely right. So Dr. Adams, Stanley, Dima, Rich Campbell, all these other folks that are out here, we need to start talking about how do we play ball together with one another. Maybe we should do something called play ball. I don't know, Adolph, maybe you and I together, bring folks together and figure out how do we play ball together. And it's not just the Black and brown folks, it's veterans, women, staying connected, the smaller entities, figuring out how do we do business with one another. And because I'm gonna tell you something, and this is my thoughts, legalization and from a cannabis reform, I support it 100%, but I support it in a small progress, because right now, this is our time to go into a state, figure out our stuff, start creating revenue, build a brand, build a business with the intent to sell it. You can't sell it right now to the people that got the money. Remember, guys, Bristol Myers Squibb does $500 billion in revenue in a year. We're talking about just maybe some of our businesses doing $1 billion or $40 billion for, like, so you have these big pharma companies and these big technology companies, the the Accentures and the Amazons of the world that could come and take our industry and gobble it up. The only thing that's stopping it right now is federal prohibition. It's the only thing. So create something now that has value, so when they're ready to gobble up, they see you have something that's going to give them entry or connection to a marketplace that's going to help them to be able to capture more revenue. And that's why, to be honest with you, besides the fact that I'm a woman, but I know that women we're caretaker, we're the buyer, we take care of the family, we're a wife, we're a worker, all that. And I wanted to create something that was specific to women, being a Black woman, and specific to women of color, so that when these data folks with these big companies are starting to look at data, who's going to be the buyer now that it's open market for everyone and legalization has happened? Who's going to buy? Well, women, we buy. And I want my brand to have that connection, because listen, you better build a brand or build a business to sell a business. Don't get stuck. Don't get married to it. Figure out, where am I going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years and go from there. So, man, just so many great comments. Thank you so much. So Adolph, as we wrap up, tell people how they can get in contact with you if they want to learn more about the collective. You didn't even tell me about your delivery service, so that is so interesting. We want to learn more about that as well. But tell us how we can get connected with you and everything else that you're doing.
Yes, easiest way of contacting me would be email, and that's Adolph, ADOLPH, at OaklandEquityCollective.com. And that's more than likely the easiest way of getting in touch with me. We are revamping the website. The website is up now, but we're revamping it now. But you can also reach out to me directly through our website, which is www.OaklandEquityCollective.com. And we would love to thank you for that. We would love to really talk to any and everyone, because I call this project a community project, right? And what I mean by that is that our proposal was made the way it was made because we really want to give back, right? We really want anyone that wants the opportunity, we want to provide it. We can't guarantee it's gonna work, because it very well may not. But I want you to have that opportunity. So not only are we interested in, providing white label services, we're completely entrenched and interested in sharing our experience, how this works, and how it can work again. We've actually been talking to, I've been talking to the New York City Economic Development Corporation, which is one of these public-private type of relationships in New York. But apparently they're the agency that manages New York City's owned and managed real estate. They have 9 million square feet. Again, 9 million square feet of New York City owned or managed real estate. And they want to figure out how to allocate some of it to social equity. These type of programs are doable. They are realistic and they are possible. They require a capital investment up front, but what you get in the long run just makes sense. So the door is always open to just share, my experience and how this process has been, because it's very important to us that we are not the first and last facility like this. We think that more of them should exist, and I invite anyone to at any point in time reach out to have a conversation about how that can happen.
Yeah, real estate is key, critical in New York, and there is so much that's owned by the city that can be definitely transitioned over to co-op space, if you may want to say, allowing 4 and 5 different businesses to exist together, or actually allowing you to be the hub of creating these products and your white labeling. It's so super smart. And we're so excited, man. I see Adolph on Clubhouse. He's all over the place. He's super dialed in. He knows his business. He knows his information. He doesn't pontificate and be talking just to hear himself talk. And that's why I wanted him on today, because not only do we talk about what he's doing, but the conversation about supplier diversity is critical. And I need you, Adolph, and everybody that's here with me to make sure that we are reminding people every single day that we touch point with that we want to see more supplier opportunities afforded to social equity, minority, Black-owned businesses, because we believe that's where longevity and opportunity will start, live, and exist. So, man, Adolph, I appreciate you. What do you got planned for this weekend? What are you doing, brother? Besides working.
The first thing went to, so I got so much work. So work
to do.
And then I believe my wonderful, beautiful wife and my daughter and son and I think my mother and my little sister or my brother's wife, and I think all the moms were going, I think, to the aquarium or to the aquarium dinner or something.
You just be where when they tell you it's time to be somewhere, you could just be there.
Be there, dressed, ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go. Because she was like, I think we doing just be there, be dressed, ready to go.
And ready to drive. And ready to drive, right? I know the routine. You're driving. So, yeah. So,
exactly.
So I believe that's it. But, and then, and then I have a couple of supply chain meetings today. So, I thank you as well. So I thank you so much for, having me, because this whole...
if you have supply chain needs, if you don't mind just reaching out to me and let me know, let us do, first we can uplift and amplify Oakland Equity Collective. And then I would love to be able to say they have some supply chain needs. And if you have, if you want to submit your RFP or submit your capability statement, that they can email it to you so that you can have them as an option. I would love that.
We have all. Any supply chain need you can think about, we have, right? Everything you mentioned and above earlier, because really what it narrows down to is that, again, there's just going to be this continuous cycle of not only our S-type 6 applicants who will be here for a year and a half, but also our just white label clients. And so people continue to need legal services, accounting, packaging, labels, raw materials, non-cannabis related raw materials. And so in my world, it's better to work within an ecosystem that we know what to expect and how we can actually work together, right? And so it just only makes sense to say, if you have, professionals or supply chain partners in your back pocket, send them this way, because I'd rather send the resources to someone somebody has a relationship with. Right. That's just the way.
I just want to feed the flow. I just want to see Black people doing business with Black people, right? And we can do that. But I will tell you this, and I'm going to make this statement. I just had a conversation connecting some vendors to one of the major MSOs. And I will tell you this, folks, if you are someone that you think you're going to put a cannabis tax on your proposal and you're going to price yourself out of the marketplace, you're not going to get an opportunity. You can't go and think of cannabis as, oh my gosh, I can double my normal rate. Don't do that. Look at this as an additional revenue of business that you didn't have. Don't overprice yourself out, because what it does is it turns people off. They realize that you're overpricing and they're not going to do business with you. Again, it turns people off. They know you're overpricing and they will not do business with you. So don't price yourself appropriately, leave margin for profit or what have you, but don't overprice yourself, because you won't get that opportunity. And I just want to leave that in everybody's spirit today, because I've seen it happen.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So Adolph, we're going to offline, we're going to do something. We're going to get your logo and we're going to put something up, create something, and that we're going to do specifically ask for suppliers that want to enter into the supply chain network with the with your collective, that we're going to help facilitate that through MProcure. So if that's fair, I would love to make that happen. Okay.
Of course. And
right.
before we end, I want to end on the note of thanking you for all the work that you've done for the community. Thanking you for, being a national voice for us. Many of us stray away from that, and it's not easy. So I want to thank you. It's not at all. So I want to thank you for being, one of those voices, for being an advocate for all of us, who are attempting to do this crazy thing that we are attempting to do, because you don't have to. And your counterparts and your peers, you guys don't have to. You can be like everyone else and be focused on you and your business alone. Yeah. And so, hats off.
And it's so easy to be so focused on your own business that you don't realize that you got to do something. That's the other thing. I challenge you guys. You always got to give back. It doesn't have to be this big. It could be this big. But if we don't do that, we are going to lose out in the end. And that's what, I spend time on things. You see me on the State of Cannabis News Hour, and sometimes people are like, well, why are you on that? I'm like, because if my voice is not on there to challenge someone else's conversation about something that they may not know about, or that they don't represent our interests, then we won't get heard. And so I take time out of my schedule because I know that it's a audience that's growing, and we need to make sure that we're represented. So represent your folks, represent your community, give a bit of time back. Everything is not going to be a quid pro quo. I give this, I get this. I do so much that I give and don't get anything back, but it comes back for sure.
One way or the other, it comes back.
One way or the other.
Yes. So, like Ross said, don't do it for what you can get out of it. Do it because it's the right thing. Do it because at some point in time, somebody probably reached down and picked you up too.
Absolutely. And it feels good too.
It does. And I also want to give a major shout out to that super bad hat that you have on today.
Hey, listen, I'm just feeling myself on this Friday. It's Mother's Day weekend. I want to wish every mother out there, every person who fits in or takes on the role as a mother. If you're doing that motherly thing and being able to take care of a child or a niece or a grandchild or an adopted child, or if you're a puppy mom like I am as well, wishing you guys a very happy Mother's Day. I love you guys. I'm so thankful. Adolph, you my brother for life, brother. I know we're going to talk offline and get together, but thank you for being on today. You're so super wonderful, and I know that our audience really enjoyed hearing from you.
Thank you for having me, and happy Mother's Day to you and all the mothers out there as well.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. Have a great one. See you guys.
Bye-bye.